I've lived it in the mud, the chaos, and the moments nobody writes about. This show is the truth, raw, unfiltered, and built for leaders who actually give a damn. If you're ready to grow, ready to own your own story, and ready to lead from the front, you're in the right place. Speak up, show up, lead. Let's get into it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another live episode. I'm your primary host every time you see me on these platforms, JJ Hardy. Today, I have Vic, aka the Little Saint here. He's joining me, but today we're doing something a little bit different, and we'll go into that. But first, let me tell you, like I always do, about my book, Speak Up, Show Up, Lead. These are my leadership lessons from childhood all the way to now, through poverty, going into the military, coming out of the military, and then starting my own business up to now. If that interests you, check it out, Amazon.com. Speak Up, Show Up, Lead. And yeah, don't forget to buy it. Let me know what you think. Vic, how are you doing, man?
Good, bro.
Yeah.
It's been a busy day for me today. So I pretty much set up my podcast stuff in a hurry. So
Well, so far I think it looks just fine. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and tell everybody real quick what we're doing here. So you see all kinds of logos surrounding us here on our background. Vic's are corresponding with his picture. Mine are corresponding with my picture. You already know mine. But the one in the very middle, this is important because we're starting this basically as of, what was that, last Thursday or Friday?
Yep.
But the Growth Forge, it's not just a live show. The Growth Forge is actually going to be a program and a community, and we're going to be having people join us. We'll be shooting these live from Zoom once we get enough of a following, because we want to help people, grow. It's a self-leadership program. We're going to be doing a show every week, and it's going to be at 8 o'clock Central Time, or where Vic is at over in California, we're going to be doing it his time, 6. And if you're on the East Coast, that'll actually be 9 o'clock is when we start, and that's going to be every Monday. But we're going to be talking about a bunch of topics. But you all know me, but I'm still going to go over my introduction again. But first, because Vic is here, and he hasn't been on one of my platforms in a long time, I'm going to let him give his introduction first. Vic, you want to do an intro real quick?
Yes, sir. We'll do it the right way. What up? It's your boy, Little Saint. So my name is Vic. I'm excited about this because, number one, this is mine and JJ's thing, you know. Mine and JJ, we were thinking about it. I came up with the idea, like, let's get a book club. Let's do it on a podcast. And he's like, dude, that sounds like a great idea. So here we are, and the book that we're both reading, I mean, like, literally opens up a lot of things. So real quick about me, I'm a music artist, motivational speaker, DJ, a printing guy, a podcast producer. Like, the list goes on and on and on. Check out LittleSaintProductions.com. And again, this is mine and JJ's thing. If you guys want to be part of it, come on. Because if there's books that you read that you're interested in reading, or you find interesting, send them our way, and we'll read them, and we'll tell you how we think about them.
Yeah, but we're not only telling people what we think about the books we're reading. What we're doing is we're going through the lessons that we're learning from each one of these books, and we're actually going to talk about how those work from a leadership perspective. Since this is a self-leadership program, we're gonna spin this stuff around and turn it into some knowledge transfer. So it goes into our brain, out our mouths, and then back to you all. And you know, this could be as interactive as you want to make it. So if anybody at any point I'll just go ahead and put this up here. But if anybody at any point would like to join in the conversation, we'll let you in.
Yeah.
But it's only going to be your voice. It's not going to be the actual you. So that's the phone number you can call in and join us. But the book we were reading, well, Vic, since you're the one who picked this book, why don't you go ahead and tell them a little bit about the book?
So the book we're reading, I'm also posting the Zoom, the YouTube link to everybody's thing. So the book we're reading is by Robert Greene. It's called Laws of Human Nature. Okay. Go pick it up at your nearest Barnes and Noble. We're going to be taking all the chapters and what we've learned from what we've read, and just giving you the advice, giving you meat, potatoes, and steak. Because to be honest, I was listening to it. JJ, and I was like, "Yo, JJ, chapter 1 got me thinking really, really insightful, opened my eyes." And JJ was saying the same thing. It's like we were on the same page.
Yeah, agreed. And this book is really good. So let me go ahead and tell you what it's about so far. In the preface, at the very beginning of the book, it starts going into some really cool stuff. It talks about Pericles, who was a ruler of Athens for a while, and about it basically said how he really thought Athena was just the most amazing goddess because of her ability to just be rational and lead ethically with rationality. So that's basically the premise of this entire first chapter so far, but he goes into detail with some specifics on self-reflection, using rationale versus being rational or irrational. And it's really, really cool. I highly recommend that you guys check it out. But we're going to go ahead and talk about it. So what was your take on it, Vic?
Well, my question for everybody is, and I asked you this earlier, do you find yourself rational or irrational? Do you consider, and you know what the fun thing is, this actually touched on a lot of different areas. Like it talks about children who were abandoned tend to create patterns in life without seeing the reason. I know we joke about dad's not coming back, but there's an emotional point to that too. For example, I don't care. For example, there are parents out there that will give more attention, treat another child of their own better than one of the other kids. And we call that an emotional abandonment, and then when you go through a divorce or you go through a breakup and there's a child involved, both parents, one parent's not there physically. So now you got a physical abandonment. You see what I'm saying? So rational people are thinkers, they're planners. Irrational people jump without thinking.
Well, and actually what's interesting is during the course of reading this, he actually points out, Mr. Green does, that we are inherently irrational. Rationality has to be learned. And when we're thinking about how we lead ourselves, we tend to try to do the best thing we can all the time, but how even that is a little bit irrational because we're doing what we think is right, and we don't always put ourselves in other people's shoes. And oftentimes, even though we try very hard to stay away from it, we're still, to a certain extent, leading through our ego, which is basically the opposite of the divine wisdom. It's actually the selfish side of us.
Right. And so I kind of feel like the main thing is learning different biases. You got to learn the different biases. You know, you got to recognize it first. Recognize it. You got to, there's confirmation, conviction, appearance, the group. Let's talk about the group for a second. I like that one because on Facebook, you can create a group. And the one cool thing is that I learned is listening to this is that you can have a group of friends and there's always going to be those people that create drama, that start drama, that and they will suck everybody in. They will suck everybody and they'll run to somebody. Oh, you know, this person did this and this person said that. Oh, we're not friends no more. And can you, you know, and it's like taking sides, basically. You know, I like what he also said about the horse. I know you really like that one, but the blame bias, you know, superiority bias. We got to be aware of the inflaming factors. So there's 3 different steps, but I think step 1 we should really look at recognizing biases. Number 1, confirmation bias. You know, what did you get from that one?
Well, from the confirmation bias, first of all, let's break it down. So recognizing the biases is basically while we're talking about all of these things, it's part of emotional intelligence. So it's understanding a bit about what you're doing. And that's really all it is to recognize your biases and think of it like AA or anything else. When you have a problem, you can't really solve it until you recognize it, until you own up to the idea that you have a problem. But anyway, you were asking me about the confirmation bias, and you know, I'm going to refer back to my notes. You know, it very specifically laid out in here that we find the evidence we want to get our desired result. And so what that means is that it's kind of like the opposite of active listening. When you're having a conversation with somebody and you want to say something, and that person keeps on talking and talking and talking, maybe they're talking about going out on the weekend or something like that, and you already have something that you want to say that is not even related at all. And as soon as they're done talking, you speak out and say something like, well, if they're going out on the weekend, well, how about those bills or something weird that's completely unrelated? Well, the confirmation bias is kind of like that when it comes to an idea. So you already have an idea of how you want the end state to be. And regardless of how much conversation you have about it, likely you're going to tell yourself that your idea is the best one. And you're probably not going to deviate too far from it. And if you think about the ego and how that controls us and makes us think that we are the only thing that matters, and our ideas are the only thing that matters, isn't it interesting how it comes very easy. I mean, say a business, right? We spend all this time putting something together, and then we hire a consultant to come in and help us get to the next level, or a coach to help us get to the next level. While those people are talking to us, how often are you thinking in the back of your mind, oh my gosh, this guy doesn't know anything about all the stuff that I've been doing to put my stuff together. And so when you get off the call, you may have put together some goals that person helped you with. But if you're not open-minded and you're not actually willing to do something a little bit different and outside of your comfort zone, then that confirmation bias is going to kick in and you're just going to say, no, I'm just going to keep on doing what I'm doing because it's been working so far. And if it's kind of counterintuitive, because in that situation, if you would drop the ego and really think about what you were trying to do when you hired that coach or consultant, don't you think that it's a ton more beneficial to put that confirmation bias and your ego to the side and actually try to do something a little bit different and keep an open mind?
Yep. I kind of feel like with the confirmation bias, what I got out from it was you're confirming I'm on the right path. You're confirming what I'm doing is okay.
Well, yes. But remember, this is something that we think about this is something that we're thinking inside of our head. We might not necessarily, it doesn't always translate to an action. When you think about a bias, this is like an internal belief system that we keep all the time. So, I mean, there's pleasure and pain avoidance. I mean, that's obvious. It's self-explanatory. You know, the confirmation bias, we talked about that. The conviction bias, believing that our idea has to be right. How often does that happen? The appearance bias. We see people or things as they appear to be, not as they are. And usually we do that so that we tend to, maybe we didn't want to like that person, so we see all the negative. Or maybe we did want to like that person, so we see nothing but the positive. But that's still an internal dialogue that we're creating out of thin air inside of our own head, and you got to be really, really careful with that. The group bias, going into a room, everyone's talking to you. Vic used it in terms of a community, but maybe you go into a room, you're already a little bit on an anxiety high because there's a lot of people there and you're not necessarily used to that. You want to do the right thing. You want to make all the good impressions, but then people start talking to you and you start clinging to your ideas because you're afraid to let those, you don't want to tell the people too much about what you're doing, but maybe you should, but maybe you shouldn't. And that all goes on. And then you have this idea that you will not conform. And so your whole networking experience can just be thrown completely down the toilet. The blame bias, my goodness. I believe in extreme ownership, taking ownership for everything within your sphere of influence. And the blame bias is the opposite of that. It's placing blame somewhere else so that you don't have to own the outcomes that are actually happening in your life, which is just absolutely ridiculous. But a lot of people do it. I mean, I still do it. I guarantee, Vic, you probably still do it every once in a while.
I do it. And you know what the sad part is? We play the blame game way too much. Way too much. We blame others. We blame others for our success. We blame others for the fact that we didn't get that job promotion. We blame others. We blame things, and the sad part is we're going to believe the stories that we tell each other to tell others. Oh, that's a good thing right there.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. But, just make sure, because when you don't recognize that all of these mistakes that you're making are actually a thing, and you do the pain and the pleasure and pain avoidance, you do the confirmation bias stuff, you do the conviction bias, and you keep all of these, even if you notice them, you're not going to be able to make any changes in the way that you conduct yourself. We have Veteran Racing over here. He is saying we fail to blame ourselves and have that accountability without a doubt. We all do that. Yeah. We all do that. I mean, when it comes to blame, you should always look in the mirror first. If you don't, then you're probably missing an opportunity to improve, because if you think all the external factors are the reason that things don't go the way that you expect them to go, then you're not looking in the right place.
Yeah, well, my question is, how many times a day do you blame yourself for your own success, for you not having your own success the way you want it to be?
Well, definitely a lot more now that I've been in business for myself for so long. I think that when I had a position of authority inside of a business, you tend to try to find a factor to blame so that you can improve a process or whatever the case may be. The blame game is always a fail if you don't look in the mirror. That's right. Yeah. That's right. There he goes again. That's an excellent point. But when it comes to
I think you should call in on the number.
Yeah. Call on in if you want to, brother. Go ahead. But when it comes to making real change, if you don't look at what you're doing, because my problem was when I was working for other people is I would still look at myself, but when I have 15 other people that I got to look out for, or 70 people that I got to look out for, and you start seeing patterns with what they're doing, you tend to look at yourself less, when in reality, that's what you should be doing first. Before I even address this situation with my team, or before I even look at the results of why this is going this way in my business, what is something that I am doing that is maybe excessive or not enough, or what is something that I can do differently?
Never tell your team to do something unless you're willing to do it yourself. You know?
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and say this live, Vic. I sent you a private text, but I don't think it went through. Can you turn down? I think maybe it's your speaker that's causing that extra interference.
I don't know. I have a lot of stuff going on over here. Like literally.
Okay.
That's why I said I got to readjust, and hopefully I can readjust by next week. So
it's all good.
Creating a sound.
Yeah, it is. And if I mute my mic, it goes away. But anyway, let's go ahead and get back to this. So we talked about recognizing biases as the first step to lead yourself more effectively and more rationally. If you're trying to lead irrationally, what ends up happening, the reason that it's irrational is because you're getting emotionally involved. And although you can't keep emotions out of it, you can definitely regulate those emotions. I mean, this is all emotional intelligence stuff that we're talking about here. I mean, that's really all it is.
You're on the right track. Because we dwell on fears that intensify past moments, of danger, to the point of feeling constant anxiety.
Yeah, we do.
And it just goes hand in hand with what you're saying. It's Mike, somebody always told me I'm depressed. And you know what the sad part is depression really real? Because honestly, I believe that anxiety and depression are made up in our minds of what we are made to think. It's a biased thing.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Absolutely. Absolutely. And, that gets us to, step 2 of trying to lead more rationally. And that's to be aware of the inflaming factors. And, I can go down about half the list if you want to go down the other half here, Vic, but triggers from our past.
Yeah.
Sometimes you won't recognize those triggers or even recognize what happened in your past unless you have a conversation with somebody about it. But pay close attention to when you're triggered. What does that do for you? When you're triggered, what is actually happening in the background? Trace that back to other situations that are similar to that and see what they're like. Overthinking bad events or emotions. Oh my gosh. This can be used in so many different ways. First of all, when something is bad and you fly off the handle about it, or you sit there and try to rationalize that thing when sometimes it's just a bad event, what tends to happen?
You run.
Well, you make it worse. You tend to make it worse. I mean, think about this. Think about a time when you were at work and you were having a conversation with somebody And then all of a sudden they said something that just offended the crap out of you. Maybe they said something about a shirt you were wearing or about the way you were walking, or maybe you were talking about a conversation you had with somebody else and they called you stupid or whatever the case may be. And then you walked away from that and you just started thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe they said that. And then you started coming up with reasons why they might have said that. And then now all of a sudden this person doesn't like you. And now all of a sudden you can't work with this person. But now I have to go to work with that person tomorrow.
You know, I would run to the bathroom and be like, is it my hair? Is it my shirt? There's something on my pants. You know, I start, and this is something we don't do. We don't double check ourselves in the mirror. When stuff goes like that goes down, we just react, like you say.
Yeah, it's spiraling for sure. But you know, it's not just overthinking those things, but you know, if you're trying to beware of your inflaming factors, you know, you got to notice signs of anger, sadness, withdrawal. I mean, not just with yourself. I mean, and by the way, think very closely about everything that we're talking about here, because from a leadership perspective, if you have a team and you want to lead them more effectively, and say somebody is having a bad day and you recognize it because you know that person and you take the time to get to know them, all of these things that we're going through, you can help them with as well.
Yeah.
It's self-leadership. You got to lead yourself before you can lead others, but that's because when you figure yourself out, then you're more likely to be able to figure other people out.
I know a couple people that are, you know, and this is where rubber meets the road. Is this first chapter talked about emotions, then it talked about the narcissistic person, and then it talks about the empath of a person, and like literally it just crammed it all in one. And one of the things that you said, trigger points early, sudden, what was the other one? Sudden
overthinking bad events.
Yeah. So there's always been something I've been always overthinking. Okay. Always overthinking. Am I good enough? Did I do a good job? Did I speak well? Did I present well? Am I a good leader? I guess sudden gains and losses. You know, what have you gained so quick, but lost so fast as well? You know, everything is a mental thing.
Yeah. So when that happens, how do you counteract that? When you start second guessing yourself, how do you counteract that?
I just laugh.
Well, why? Did you come to a conclusion of sorts, or is that just did you just say, this is dumb, I'm going to stop doing this?
I would probably just laugh and be like, I give up. Walk away for a little bit, and then come back to it. You know?
Interesting. So when you get to the point where you're questioning yourself as a leader, because this relates directly to what we're talking about right now. So if you question your leadership potential and you start spiraling in that direction and then you just laugh it off, there's a growth moment to recognize there. Have you ever taken the time to think about what that means in your journey and maybe what you can be doing differently and all that sort of stuff in those moments? Or what are some ways that you've been able to counteract that?
That's a good question, because number one, for me as a leader, if I've done something to embarrass myself, it's just like, you definitely got to take the time of like, how did I get to this point? How? That's the question, is how did this happen, or why did this happen, and how did I get to this point? You know?
Okay. And when you got to that, so once you figured out what got you to that point, what did you do about it? Was there a conversation that you decided to go and have differently? Did you Did you make a pledge in that moment to do something differently next time in whatever situation you're referring to? I mean, I'm just curious, give an example, because this is a really good growth moment.
Yeah.
A lot of people, Vic, they get stuck in this and they don't grow because of it. So I'm just curious, what's something that you've done once you realized what that was that you needed to do differently?
I would just sit and think, okay, this is what happened. The next time this happens again, I know how to get out of it. You know, what to say. Maybe for example, if you offend somebody, maybe I shouldn't have said that, but you're not thinking about, oh, I shouldn't have said that. You're thinking, haha, I'm joking, or then you walk away and you think, I shouldn't have said that. Why did I even say that? You know, you start talking to yourself through that moment, and you put yourself back in that moment. So that way, if there's ever that moment that happens again with somebody else and you feel like you're going to say it, shut your damn mouth.
Well, I mean, it's not that easy, right? I mean, our parents told us when we were growing up that if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. How often do we actually follow through with that statement? Probably not as often as we should. I've been married for 20 years this month. And one thing I can say is that I put my foot in my mouth probably 10 times more than I should here at home. But when it comes to a situation like that where you offend somebody, it's, you know, you may think that you're a total turd after saying something like that. But realistically, if you felt bad about it, it's because you cared more about that other person than that stupid thing that came out of your mouth. And so that is actually a leadership growth moment, because, you know, let's talk about this is the growth forge that we're calling this every week show, right? So when it comes to growth and you have something that needs to be changed and you don't take the time to recognize the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then recognize how the bad and the ugly should probably be changed, but the good needs to be continued, well, then you're not doing everything you can to make sure you're growing as a person. If you just dismiss those moments and walk away and say, man, when I was talking to Joe over there, I really pissed him off, and now I'm just gonna blow that guy. I don't want nothing to do with that guy anymore. He's obviously too sensitive. He's obviously, you know, blah, blah, blah. You're going to be saying all those things. But if you take the time to say, you know what, I should probably apologize to him.
There you go.
What's that?
I was going to say, you know, I mean, even so, for me, it takes about 30 seconds to realize what I did. And then I'll go back to that person and be like, hey, look, I was way out of line. I'm sorry for saying what I said. Can you forgive me? And let's continue to be friends.
Yeah, knock out some push-ups. But yeah, so, I mean, that's good. I wanted to take time to kind of unpack that, because that was a really, really powerful statement that you made there. But a lot of people get stuck in a statement like that without actually doing the work to move forward from it in a way that helps them and helps whoever they're dealing with. But, you know, let's go over these other inflaming factors here. You know, people think about, always think about why you act, why you think or act, and why you blame, why you believe or feel, how you resist others that are providing rationale, which that's not always easy. Let's think about that for a second. So resisting others that provide rationale. Why would you resist others that are providing rationale?
That was a good question.
Because they're saying that maybe you think that they're trying to say that what you're already doing is wrong. Maybe they're bringing up something that you haven't thought of, and that somehow makes you less of a person.
Yeah.
Does it? Absolutely not. But sometimes, like, especially in our business, we tend to think that, you know, we have a handle on things. But when somebody brings up something super obvious and rational that we could have been doing this whole time, now we're thinking, is this person a better business person than I am? Should I be really examining everything that I'm doing? Oh my gosh, my website is horrible. Oh my gosh, I didn't post yesterday. Oh my God, it turns into a whole bunch of things.
It becomes, you're going to start playing life on the safe side.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, well, you might, but on the other side of that, because that person, he said, understanding vulnerability is okay. Yeah, of course it is. That's a growth moment, but putting that aside and actually addressing that instead of just, that's what these inflaming factors are all about. If you don't address those things and you just let them roll off and you don't think about them when they happen, then you're never going to be able to figure out what the biases were that got you there. What activating event from your childhood? What acting event from your young adulthood? Maybe you had a bad experience at a past job. Maybe you were smacked around as a kid, and somebody telling you that you did something wrong means that you're now a horrible person and you want to go sit and cry in your room. I don't know.
I'm not telling you my story.
Well, but you know what I'm saying, right, Vic? If you don't examine these inflaming factors, you're never going to be able to learn to grow from those things and move on. But once you look at those inflaming factors, how do you make yourself more rational? Well, you be intentional about fixing them. So obviously the first step is going to be owning up to the fact that these things exist. Making sure you're constantly examining these biases and figuring out how you can counteract these biases if there's something that you want to change, because you won't necessarily want to change all of them. Some of those you might feel are core beliefs and you want to keep them that way. Some of them you might not. You might think they kind of make the way you do things a little bit ugly. So you might want to do something about that.
About that facial hair, sir.
Say that again?
Said you might want to do something about that facial hair.
Okay, well, I'm trying. I'm trimming it up and everything, man. It's interesting, but when it comes to growth and being rational versus irrational, once you start noticing that you're doing something that's a little bit irrational, and you can kind of, based off of what we just read in this week in this book, maybe it fits in one of those biases. And when you think about that bias, what activates that? What activates that event? And then the strategy is to figure out a way to counteract that and fix it. And sometimes it's bringing up the activating events that make that happen. Sometimes it's just talking through it, maybe with a friend or a therapist or a coworker or whatever the case may be. But you got to do it. I got to bring this up real quick before we go on to the next topic here, Vic. But you brought it up earlier, the horse and the rider concept.
Yes.
So I thought this was very interesting, and I'm sure you and the audience are probably going to be like, well, I've heard of that before, but guess what? Until 3 days ago, I had not. So the horse and the rider concept is basically, a horse is a wild animal. They just go, 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 go. And when they're big and they're strong and they run basically off adrenaline and they go. They're very intelligent animals. I wouldn't necessarily consider them dumb, I guess, but they just kind of go in whatever direction they go. Now, when you're the rider, you're in charge of that horse. And if you just let that horse run wild, and now think of that horse as the irrational self, then sometimes as the person who's controlling that horse, we just have to get that horse in check and point it in the direction that we want it to go. Maybe we want it to ride a little bit faster. Maybe we want it to ride a little bit slower. But we are in control of ourselves. And so, if you think of Stoicism, they said we're only in control of our thoughts and actions, not outside events. Well, that's what the horse and the rider is. You know, the horse is the outside events, and maybe you going off the rails a little bit, and you as a rider, you need to pull that back together and control what you're doing. I thought that was a very interesting concept, and I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah.
But you said you wanted to talk about something else.
What was it I wanted to talk about?
I don't know. I think you said something about sharing your story.
Oh, yeah. So a lot of people don't realize that I am a product of alcohol. So in 1986, I was born in 1986 to a mother of 13 kids, and yeah, 13. I know I'm probably gonna get smacked by this when I say it, but it was a water slide by the time it got to me. By the time I was born, anyways, I was born with a disability called fetal alcohol syndrome, and my mom was an alcoholic. When I was adopted out, I was adopted into a family where my dad, my adopted dad, was a drinker as well. Well, his brother was a drinker, and basically I became a drinker. But here's the cool thing, and I'm going to tell you this. I believe that me sharing this story with you goes hand in hand with this book, because it's all about breaking chains. You know, mentally, you're gonna get those people that say, choose me to be your friend. You know, I broke the chain of drinking, 5 months sober. Okay. And I share that with you because of the fact that, number one, everything in life is a mental game. It's a mental game. Life is like chess. I've been told that the cards that we're dealt, we can't get new cards unless we play some of the hand. I say some of the hand that we're given. So the best way to play that hand is play the crappy cards first and get some new cards in hand. Okay. So I was dealt with the fact that my mom was an alcoholic. She wasn't around when we needed her. She was probably into drugs. She was probably going out all hours of the day and night. That's why all 13 kids got taken away. But then I get adopted and I get placed into a home where the dad is a drinker. The brother is a drinker. The grandfather is a drinker. You see what I'm saying? I was dealt a crappy hand. But guess what? I played the crappy cards to get better ones. And look at me and JJ tied up, linked up. I own 2 businesses, very successful. I have a podcast called The Little Saint Show. Me and JJ are doing this Growth Forge podcast. I cannot talk today. Jeez, I was trying to talk to some people today, and I'm but I think I know what it is. I need some water.
Well, I think that journey to anybody would think that is inspiring, to go from having a rough childhood to be able to figure it out as an adult and move forward. But you brought up some very, very good lessons in there. And that's that regardless of where you come from, you can become anything. And though not all countries work that way, the United States actually does. Yeah, there may be a lot of governmental factors. Maybe there are other environmental factors that make it uncomfortable or difficult or whatever the case may be. But when you buckle down and you take all excuses away and you go out there and you do what you got to do, which is usually the very difficult, uncomfortable, and sometimes ugly things,
Yep.
to get to where you feel like you need to be, where you want to be, need to be, then it's going to work out a lot better for you. I think there are a lot of people out there that could learn from that. I mean, we tend to think that because we're a part of this environment that there's absolutely nothing else for us. I also grew up in poverty, as you know. The military saved my life. I mean, there was drugs, alcohol, child abuse. Hell, I was even homeless for a little while. And I'm not going to go into too many details. If you want to know, buy the book. But
Yeah.
you know, when I went into the military, the only thing that really changed is that instead of being told how worthless and stupid I was all the time, I had people believe in me, and they worked my tail off, and they told me I could do it, that they're not going to ask me to do anything that they wouldn't do. And then things changed for me. And then I was pushed out of the military before my actual retirement time. And I had some other stuff to learn then. But then I got out into the civilian workforce. And if you want to know more about those events, again, buy the book. It's in the book. But, it's just, adversity is just a part of life. And if you look at everything that's hard and you just try to avoid it when it comes up, you're missing an opportunity. Life is hard. Things are hard. And if you don't embrace the suck and you try to run away from the things that are hard, I don't know what to tell you. Don't complain too much about your situation, because you're putting yourself there.
And that brings us to this. Strategies toward bringing out the irrational self. And for some of us, we experience moments of great irrationality, which often occurs the maker's mindset. Okay. I got married at a young age, had a baby, maybe a couple babies. I don't know. But became homeless. I was homeless. I started my DJ company, and I'm out there telling people, yeah, I own a business, but I was homeless. The irrational self of every time I failed at something, or, couldn't get a venue to host karaoke at, I'd always get bummed out, depressed, So the following strategies are designed to help you bring out the inner Perseles of Athena. So I'm going to let JJ start off the first one, which is know yourself thoroughly.
Yep. So knowing yourself thoroughly, what does that mean? So knowing yourself thoroughly is understanding it. So let's go back to these other biases. Understanding what triggers you, understanding what doesn't trigger you, figuring out what relaxes you, just getting to know your emotions. I mean, let's think of emotional intelligence for a second. It's all about regulating your emotions. And then this book, it's all talking about regulating yourself. And really, they're exactly the same thing. What'd you say?
Regulators.
There you go. Mount up. But so if you don't know yourself and you don't understand your triggers and understand, your icebergs and understand your biases and all that other stuff, then getting to a place where you can regulate yourself is going to be extremely, extremely, extremely difficult.
Sorry, you cut up there for a second.
Okay. Nope. I finished it up by saying that if you don't know yourself and understand how to regulate your emotions, then the growth process is going to be very difficult for you.
And that's where you got to examine your emotions to their roots of why. What is it that triggers you? What I found out is that if you've ever drank and you've ever gotten angry at people, no matter who it is in front of you, your trauma comes out and your emotions, whatever has happened in your past is your root of your trauma for today. Oh, you might want to write that down. Your trauma of the past is the root of the trauma of today.
But that doesn't have to claim your entire identity.
No.
As a matter of fact, that understanding that is how you learn to be better.
So if you're angry, it was probably triggered by something trivial or petty. Somebody come along and they'll be like, oh, I'm going to take all my stuff back that I bought you. Okay. You can have it. Cool. You know, or a dig below that triggers points. You know, somebody's going to dig at you so much, it's going to start triggering you. You know what I've been told? Don't ever tell somebody about your past.
Okay. What's the rationale for that?
They're going to use it against you.
Okay. Will they really?
You ever break up with somebody or get into an argument with somebody and then they'll be like, oh, do you remember about 2 years ago?
Well, that's a relationship, but otherwise.
But it's emotional. It's the emotions that are flying, both of your emotions, and there's things that triggered her or him. You see what I'm saying? So, and it's rooted. It's rooted. So they're not going to forget it. They're angry. They're going to spew out stuff out of anger. There's times when my girl like spewing stuff out of anger, and it, to be honest, it would piss me off. And I would hold a grudge. Yes, spiteful. I would hold a grudge for like 2-3 days, and then I would message her or talk to her and be like, hey, you know, I didn't like that, what you said. So you need to look this square in the eye and do, like, again, you need to record self-assessment with ruthless objectivity.
Yeah, but let's go back to what you were just saying, though, because sometimes you can share your past with other people. Let's look at that from a leadership perspective, because sometimes when you have a hard time getting a relationship with somebody, whether it's an employee of yours or maybe it's a new friend or whatever the case may be, sometimes sharing that bit of your past and a little bit of vulnerability can actually help you kind of get past that initial layer with that person that may not trust you until you show a little bit of humanness. And yeah, actually, Veteran Racing right here said it really well. You also have to be vulnerable with whomever you're sharing your life with.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't hide yourself just because you don't want them to bring it back on you. If they're bringing it back on you, that's on them. That's not on you.
Right. What about the increased reaction time? Let's see. So a lot of people get defensive and unable to learn or progress from these moments. You know, how many times has your emotions flew? You know, you and I, we get to that moment of we get vulnerable with each other and we talk about things that I would walk away and be like, huh, this is a relationship with me and JJ, and you've told me things that were vulnerable and I could relate. And it's like, dude, you know?
Yeah.
So like we both agreed earlier, reading this book, it was more of a self-assessment. You know, I don't need to do that, but I need to get up and walk, go outside, take a deep breath.
Well, actually, the us reading this book was one way for us to have an excuse to get on here and go live and have a conversation with everybody else. Plus, we wanted to do a book club, but we're not going to necessarily do a book club. We're gonna be doing self leadership programs through the Growth Forge. Which actually, this is probably a good time to bring that up, if you don't mind, Vic. So, okay, we're at a party. So what I will say, the Growth Forge is, like I said in the beginning of the call, it's more than just a call that we do once a week on Mondays. We have a Facebook group that I'll link down in the comments here. And then once we get 2 or 3 people who are interested, we're actually going to start a paid program. For the first 8 people, it's going to be $49 a month. And we're actually going to have a structured set of calls that we do where every week we come up with an outcome, and then every week when we come back, we have accountability. And we're going to be teaching people how to be able to lead themselves so that they're more effective in their lives. And the reason that the reason that this is valuable to everybody out there is because if you're struggling with whatever outcomes that you're having a hard time getting to right now, and you are looking around and trying to find a solution, well, look within yourself, and we can help you with that. We have programming here in our conversations that we're going to be doing live, but also where we go off camera and we're just talking amongst ourselves, where we're actually in a structured fashion. We're going to be talking through your issues based off of whatever topic and wherever the conversation goes, so we can have high level conversation to get you where you need to go. It's going to be a group coaching program. And that's valuable because if you don't have accountability and you've been struggling for, I don't know how long you've been struggling, think to yourself about how long you've been struggling, because I can't help you with that if I can't even talk to you. But
I don't even think you can think.
I can't even. I have a hard time thinking to begin with. I don't even know what you're talking about. But you know,
We're in a great book.
Say that again.
I can't talk and you can't think. That's dangerous.
Dangerous. But this is why.
Well, I don't know where he went, but I think he got kicked off. But anyways, this is why we're going to do this, is because we want to help people get through not only just your personal life, but your business life or anything that's going on as well. I don't know if we're still live right now. Let me check here real quick. Shows that we're still live. Awesome. Awesome. Hold on. I don't know where he went. Let me but if you guys want to call in right now and talk and everything, we can get you on.
Well, I think we're
I can't hear you.
Oh, I don't know what happened to everybody. I apologize. My power went out, my lights blinked, and then I had to turn my computer back on and load back in. So I apologize for that. But anyway,
JJ.
But we really don't have anything else other than to say that if you're interested in joining us, you got to shoot me a DM. And if you're watching this and you have Vic's contact information, shoot him a DM. Again, once we get to 8 people, we'll be raising the price a little bit just because we're trying to get people interested, but it starts off at $49 a month. And we'd be happy to have you. If you're having a hard time getting to that next step, that's what me and Vic are here for, is to help you with a little bit of accountability. Vic, before we roll out of here, do you have any closing comments that you'd like to share?
I just want to say this to everybody out there. You know, things are tough. I know we didn't get to a lot of it, but a couple things. Number one, what is affecting your relationship with friends, coworkers, and the person you're with? I'll tell you the number one thing, and we didn't touch on this at all. I want to touch on it a little bit. Is social media. Social media. You know what? I see this so many times is that people become narcissistic because they've seen so much social media. They don't know how to go from fiction to reality. You know what I'm saying? Is like they like I don't know if you've ever been in the experience of when you go into a restaurant, what are people doing? They're on their phones. How many times you go to bed together? Who's on their phone? You or them? You know,
Both.
yeah. And you know what? It's pulling the relationship away. And that's the thing. So the one thing that I realize is social media and it is making people irrational. Seriously.
Well, part of the problem is, Vic, is that, our patience level has dropped significantly ever since social media really started picking up, and now you have to get people's attention in the first 10 seconds, otherwise you don't have them. I mean, we live our lives going from one reel to the next reel to the next reel, and a lot of people think that what other people are talking about in these reels are the truth.
Yeah.
And oftentimes they don't do any research. I know this is common with my kids. They come up to me after they watched a reel, or they'll send me something, and then I'll do the background research because I'm like, wait, what? No way. And then I'll get the full picture. But when I have a conversation with them, they're still stuck in what was being said in the reel. And so what I challenge people to do is, okay, fine. If social media is a place where you like to spend your time, please spend time there. Otherwise, you wouldn't be seeing this video in the first place.
Exactly.
But
I'm not against social media. I'm just saying there should be like,
yeah, but it's a tool, man. It's a tool. It's a tool to keep in touch with your friends, provide a little bit of entertainment. But when it comes to stuff that may or may not be factual that's going on in the world, and you're using social media as your primary means of information to keep yourself up to date with stuff in the world, you're in trouble. I just want to let you know that you're in trouble. The saying that I always used to tell my troops and my employees when I had jobs is you can trust, that's fine, but make sure you verify, because if you don't verify, then you're the fool. So that's kind of how that works.
Yep. What are your closing remarks?
My closing remarks are, when it comes to self-leadership and being irrational versus rational, make sure you know yourself. Make sure you're giving yourself a little bit of grace when you make mistakes. Don't look at anything that we've talked about in this video as a guide to make you feel sorry for yourself. Give yourself some grace. Improvement doesn't happen unless you look at the positive side of every experience. That's how growth happens. You don't grow unless you see where to grow. If you look at the negative and you dwell on the negative, you'll stay in the negative. If you look at the positives and negatives, you lean into the positives and use those positives to help you learn and grow and become a better person, well, then that's what you'll become. But if you stay negative, you'll always be negative. Don't get stuck there, because it's easy. I call it the failure loop. A lot of people get stuck in their current situation because they don't understand how to see the brighter side of things. There are many practices you can do to see the brighter side of things, but the basics of it all is that positivity wins. If you look at the opportunity to grow in every bad situation, then you'll always find the opportunity to grow in every situation.
Here's something too. Do a 30-day positive challenge. Positivity challenge. Post something positive every day. Think of something positive. Write it down. And see what happens.
And if you have a family at home, at the dinner table every night, when everybody gets home from work and school and everything else, just go around the table and ask what's one good thing that happened with you today, and make everybody share. That's right, make, because your kids are going to look at you like, oh, we're doing this again.
Yeah.
But once they get used to it, it's actually a fun little thing that you can do as a family. And then it's not so weird anymore. But I mean, that's one thing that worked well for us here at our household. But anyway, that kind of concludes what we're doing today. Thank you all for tuning in. I mean, we basically had 4, 7, almost 15 people constantly throughout this entire stream. So I appreciate your support. Hey, thanks, buddy. I appreciate you too. So you're tracking, JJ. But I want to encourage everyone again, please check out my book, Amazon.com, Speak Up, Show Up, Lead, my story of grit, growth, and leadership from the ground up. And please make sure you come back next Monday, 8 o'clock Central Time, 6 o'clock Pacific Time. And if you're on that East Coast, it'll be 9 o'clock. So join us. We'll be doing this again, and we will see you all next time.
Deuce.